Hello there, friends and lovers.
Top of the afternoon to you.
Oh my goodness, look at this. Well, hello, friends and lovers, and thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir.
And Amy Nasir.
Joined by my co-host, Amy Nasir. It is, oh my gosh, it's Pi Day. It's 3.14. It is March 14th, 2021. And the week of
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. We're going to have a little bit of fun with that.
St. Patrick's Day on all you, me and my friends.
Anybody who thinks that holidays are artificial and just an excuse to be silly, you're so right. But no, because we talked about that on weekends and holidays. We're going to talk about it some more. Today is Sunday, March 14th, 2021, and it is time. It's all about time this time around. It is March 14th, the 73rd day of the year. 292 days remaining in 2021, the best year ever of your life. And I do mean you. You know who I'm talking to. 286 days until Christmas, 21 days until Easter. And on this fine day, we wish a happy birthday to, well, we're talking about time. So we're going to wish a happy birthday to Albert Einstein.
Oh, Albert Einstein,
born on this date in 1879. Albert Einstein was, he lived to 1955. So I missed him by just 8 years. I was born after that. Born on this date in 1879. Also born on this date, Michael Caine, the actor, who is still alive. He is 88 years old today. Happy birthday, Michael Caine.
Yay.
In fact, a bit of a jump forward to what we're listening to this week, because Michael Caine has a great reading of the Rudyard Kipling poem, If, out on YouTube. We've pushed you to, pointed you to that before. I'm sure you've heard it, but if you haven't, link will be in the show notes. Michael Caine reading Rudyard Kipling's If. In fact, I'm going to read the last paragraph of that real quick, and you'll see what it all connects to when we get there. Or Walk with Kings. Excuse me, I went forward a paragraph. I've got a space here. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. We'll get back to that. Happy birthday, Michael Caine, 88 years old today. It is 3.14, March 14th, Pi Day. In fact, we have pie. We have Ashat's pie here. Michiganders will know what this is. I don't know if they're outside of Michigan, but we have the best double crust apple pie you can get.
It is
Look
so
at that
good.
little star on the top there. Isn't that cute? That is so adorable. It's also National Potato Chip Day.
Potato chip.
And I actually have a bag of potato chips that I bought just for the occasion.
That's so Irish of you.
So tell us in the comments. In the comments, because I see y'all checking in. That is so wonderful. What's your favorite potato chips? We got the Lay's potato chips here. It's funny because I go to like kettle-style chips. And even the extra dark chips, the thick potato chips, is more like eating a burnt French fry. But we always seem to come back to Lay's potato chips.
So delicious.
You know, every time we think we found a better chip, it's kind of hard to beat. Frito-Lay's, I know a lot of people are out there saying empty carbohydrates, and you're absolutely right. But damn it, I've been burning them off. I've been biking. Anybody who follows my bicycle threads online, you know. Hey, I've dropped 10 pounds this year.
Yay.
And everybody's like, weren't you supposed to drop 20 pounds by now? Well, February was a plateau month. It was a tough month. And I hear from other people that it was a tough month for them too. So I'm not taking any blame for that. That time doesn't count. Oh, wait. All time counts. Time is relentless. Let's talk about time. Today's background music, can you hear the background music? Today's background music for this episode is John Cage's composition 4 minute 33 second, or 4 quote 33 quote, or just 4:33.
I thought I recognized that song.
Yeah, I hope we don't get a takedown order for the copyright on that one.
Oh, we have some people chiming in about Holly loves dill pickle potato chips.
Dill pickle potato chips.
I love those too.
Potato chips have gotten outrageous. There's 100 flavors out. There's so many that people make fun of them.
Christina loves vinegar chips.
Salt and vinegar?
I do too. Linda says salt and vinegar.
Yeah.
I as well. Jennifer says can't eat just one.
Can't eat just one. That's more than a slogan. It is so true.
And Linda says she gives a shout out to Tara
Veggie
Veggie Chips.
I like veggie chips. I don't know if they're really any healthier than potato chips. I mean, potatoes are veggies, right? But yes, veggies like green veggies.
And Rebecca mentions Cape Cod chips.
Almost bought those today at Westbourne Market.
Yeah, those are the thicker, crunchier ones. How
Yes,
delicious.
good.
And they come in, I think, like 40% less calories or salt or sugar or whatever else.
Yeah, sure they do. So you eat 60% more.
Yes.
But the problem with a really hearty chip like that is that if you're doing dip, if you're doing ranch dip, French onion dip, cheese of some kind, a really hearty chip holds too much dip. It's an enabler. It's an enabler. That's what it is. It's not your fault if you're eating too much dip. It's those thick potato chips. So yes, today's background music is 433 by John Cage. It's probably wrapping up about now because that's what I've been listening to this week.
Yeah. I hope
Here,
you've
let me
all
put that on the
enjoyed
screen.
that.
I'm going to put the sheet music for that up on the screen. There you go.
There it is.
That's actually John Cage's original sheet music for his composition 433. The instructions on there says, for any instrument or combination of instruments. And the only notation is actually that vertical line that you see a little past halfway. And
Yes.
that was actually supposed to be a notation to let you know the first section of the music piece is a little longer than the second section. And anybody who's familiar with this knows that the piece is performed by an orchestra, but it can be
yes.
any combination of instruments,
Any combination. Yep.
and nobody plays anything. It's fun. Most people describe it as 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, but it's actually 4 minutes and 33 seconds of whatever sound you can hear when the orchestra is not doing anything. It's brilliant, except
Brilliant.
that it's also kind of horrible because a lot of people took it as a kind of snide, philosophical smack in the face at values of saying that silence is as good as music. Nothing is as good as something. Now, if you read the things John Cage wrote about it, I don't think he was that much of a nihilist. I think he was just being creative in an unusual way.
Perhaps, Milady, he was just playing an Irish practical joke.
That's right.
I don't know if he was Irish or not, but sorry for my bad Irish accent, folks.
Oh, you're going to hear a lot of bad Irish... Oh, I still got the hat on. That's right.
Yes, you
You're going to
do.
hear a lot of bad Irish accents today.
Irish accents.
We've been... Well, we mentioned in the last couple episodes, we've been watching the Murder, She Wrote.
Right.
The Angela Lansbury series, Murder, She Wrote. And for reasons I don't understand, who is British, but she has a number of episodes that take place in Ireland.
And all the actors
In Cork.
have terrible
They have
Irish
terrible.
accents.
Their Irish accents are no better than what you're hearing Amy and I do. They're just terrible. Oh my gosh.
They're so very funny.
So much fun. But besides listening to John Cage's 433, what else are we listening to this week?
I'm listening to "Cured" by Lol Tolhurst of the Cure, and I've been listening to that.
So
and
what the folks from The Cure have been up to lately?
Well, no.
Or
This
is
is
this going
actually
back a while?
his history with The Cure and with Robert Smith of The Cure.
This
It's
is
really
his
good.
bio.
Yeah, this is his bio.
Biography.
So basically, Lowell and Robert Smith are now friends again. So that's wonderful.
You know, you talked about the
news.
biography that Chris Franz wrote about Talking
Talking
Heads.
Yes.
And this one is much funner and nicer and less
It's,
angsty than that.
Yeah, it's less angsty
Good.
and it's not as vindictive against
Yes.
the lead singer.
Good. Good. And it's not that I'm sure that it wasn't appropriate. You know, David Byrne was...
Yeah, he was his
A
own
strong
person.
personality.
He's his own person.
But it's nice to know that this Cure biography is more fun than that. Well, what I've been listening to, besides John Cage, are excerpts from Ayn Rand's screenplay adaptation, Love Letters,
Oh, nice.
the 1945 film. I was drawn to some video clips of it that are online from the quote that I remembered where Singleton, the main character, is talking to Joseph Cotton's character, remind me his name. Anyway, she's talking to him, and they, spoiler alert.
Oh, don't listen for the next 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yeah, well, for the next 15 seconds. Well, this only takes place halfway through the film, so it's not much of a spoiler, but there's a kiss that happens that shouldn't have, or at least that they have reason to believe shouldn't have, and she says to him, you know, that's the difference between us. She's got this great smile on her face. You're unhappy because that can never happen again. And I am happy because it's happened once.
Oh.
Well, that brings to mind the current controversy, a sort of manufactured controversy over Dr. Seuss.
Oh.
Because Dr. Seuss is famous for having said, you know, don't be sad because it's over. Be happy that it happened at all. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, I don't think he ever said that. Nobody can find it in any of his books. And so I've linked in the show notes to a discussion of who really said that. But regardless of who said it, and incidentally, I think the Dr. Seuss hullabaloo is vastly overblown. And anybody who's upset about it, and I don't care which side of the issue you're on, if you're upset about it, if you think something terrible is going on, if you think this is an example of cancel culture, look up the details and you will realize this ain't that. It's only because there were 6, out of the whole corpus, 6 Dr. Seuss books, that Seuss's estate, the company managing these properties, decided had a bit of cultural ugliness in them. 6 books. Not the big ones, not Green Eggs and Ham, not all the, you can't get a copy of Green Eggs and Ham anymore. You can't get The Cat in the Hat. No. 6 books.
Four of which were not in print.
4 of it, which weren't even in print, gives you an idea how obscure this is, were taken off of the market. Now, I don't agree with that. I would like to see people make these decisions for themselves. I think eBay went too far in not letting people sell used copies of them. There's an issue there. I'm not saying there's not an issue there, but it ain't the issue most folks think it is. Either way, speaking of Dr. Seuss, and be not sad because it can't happen again, be happy that it happened once, however you want to phrase that. I can't say it the way Dr. Seuss said it because Dr. Seuss never said it. So we're talking about time. See, it's COVID anniversary.
No, it isn't. La, 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 la. I don't know. What is this you speak of?
For me, the COVID anniversary will always be March 9th, or really March 10th, because on March 9th, we were at a concert with good friends Steve and Christine in a room with thousands of people, shoulder to shoulder, all crowded together
like sardines,
in each other's faces.
Breathing on our faces.
COVID was out there. It was announced. People were talking about it, but we hadn't been locked down yet.
Right.
People were starting to cancel things voluntarily before the state put the boot on it.
Let's close down for 1 week and reassess.
So as we hit the 1 year mark 3 days ago for us, I've been thinking about time, and so I've been watching videos about time. There's an Andrew Zimmerman video of a TED Ed talk. He's an educator, so a TED Ed talk called "Does Time Exist?" Does time exist? And I thought, well, that's going to be terrible, but it's TED Ed, so it might have some insights. It's actually better than I thought, and it starts off with all the controversial stuff, which reasonable people, and especially objectivists, will say, that's terrible. Is time something that physically exists, or is it all in our heads? Well, that's got false alternative written all over it. Mm-hmm. But Zimmerman asks, could time be, this is where it gets good, just some sort of illusion generated by the limitations of the way we perceive the universe?
My glasses are giving me a filter, and it's causing me to see
It's all an illusion. All the love that I'm seeing from folks who are commenting is all an illusion, but no.
It created my reality for me.
See, happily, Zimmerman goes on to say, well, we don't yet know, but maybe that's the wrong way of thinking about it. Yeah. instead of asking if time exists as a fundamental property, maybe it could exist as an emergent one. Emergent properties are things that don't exist in individual pieces of a system, but do exist for the system as a whole. And I'm done quoting Zimmerman, but this maps out nicely to a conclusion from Objectivism. The universe isn't in time. Time is in the universe.
Yes.
Time is a feature of things that exist.
Yeah, time is not a container like space or Tupperware.
That's right. So, Zimmerman overuses that term illusion, but that's unfortunate, and we can get past that. Objectivism advocates absolutism, absolutes, and uniquely the concept of contextual absolutes.
Contextual absolutism. Everybody say that 10 times.
Everybody
now. Quick.
says, everybody says. When people are arguing philosophy with me, they will often say, well, if your absolutes are contextual, then they're not absolute. But really, that's the only way you can have an absolute, is to have a context. Nothing can be absolute out of context. So, like honesty. Is honesty a virtue? Is it an absolute virtue? Absolutely. Well, what if somebody breaks into your house with a gun and says, where are the kids? Are you supposed to say, upstairs, second bedroom on the right? Is that honest? Is that an honest answer? No, it's not. In the full context. So, contextual absolutism. Well, time is contextual. Time is the most contextual thing in the world.
Contextual, yeah.
5 minutes of romance is too little. But 5 minutes on hold with the IRS is way too much. It's intolerable.
It's like 5 hours, so...
I think of speaking of talking heads, see, we're going to make 1,000 connections today. Speaking of Chris Frantz and talking heads, their song Heaven.
Yes.
Heaven is a place.
A place where nothing ever really happens.
Nothing ever happens. And the point they make is the same things keep happening over and over and over again. Well, the variety could be nearly infinite, but if time was infinite, if this concept of eternity was infinite, then eventually...
you'd find yourself really bored at some point.
Beyond bored. It would be, let it end. Please let it end. Maybe not in 100 years.
Maybe they have memory wipes in heaven.
Maybe not in 1,000 years. Maybe not in 100,000 years. But eventually, see, the infinite, the concept makes no sense.
Yes.
And the song brings that out brilliantly.
Speaking of songs, we have another challenge from Jennifer.
Yes.
Time never asks what's become of us.
Well, it's in quotation marks, so I'm sure it's a Rush lyric. But she has a much better... she knows Rush lyrics much better than I do.
Okay, I'm looking this up, Jennifer.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find it. Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, time isn't a dimension. And, as this TED Ed talk suggests, it's not a primary. Time is a feature of things.
It looks like Soul of the Sea by Heart.
Soul of the Sea by Heart. Well, there you go. She surprised me right there. But no, time is not a time is essentially the measure of change. Or as Harry Binswanger would put it, the measure of motion.
Can I tell you what my definition is?
What is your definition of time?
This is just, I asked myself, Amy, what is your definition of time? And so I answered myself.
Oh, so you're doing the induction.
I'm totally doing the induction, which induction is observing the facts of reality and integrating them into concepts. So it's all reality based. It's not deduction where it's sort of like already in your head and you're trying to figure it all out. Like rationalism, I guess. So it's the observation of consistent motion and a method of measuring that motion. Like noticing how the sun or the moon move across the sky, or as you perceive it moving across the sky, or the consistent behavior of plants, animals, and your own body's circadian rhythm.
Right. Well, I agree with that. I
I
have one objection.
what's it?
And it's not really an objection, it's just an observation. But in watching Harry Binswanger's video on the topic, which incidentally is in the show notes, and he too talks about time as motion, or time as the observation of motion, or the measure of motion.
Yes.
But there are things which can only be considered motion by extension, but which aren't motion directly, that measure time. So take, for example, a blinking light. Or imagine a celestial object that has a cycle of brightness. And there are those out there. There are things that change without moving, unless you want to call a change in a color of a light a kind of motion, but it's really not. So when I say time is the measure, I don't say it's a measure of motion, I say it's the measure of change, more broadly. Primarily change in position, change in motion, but
I was
time is the measure of change.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of like if I was a primitive human being.
Yes.
I do have Neanderthal blood in me, so if I was a Neanderthal and I thought, this giant bright thing moves across the sky,
Yep.
and it also coincides with making me sleepy,
Yep.
and I can actually sleep for 8 hours or however, it's very much reality based.
Time is out there. It's funny too. I asked this question and I didn't get an answer. Maybe somebody knows the answer. We switched to metric. For a lot of stuff back in the 70s, the rest of the world is like, why are you using, 12 inches in a foot, 3 feet in a yard? Why don't you do everything by hundreds? That'll make the math easier. And a lot of things, even in the States, we switched from SAE or Standard American Equivalents to metric. But we didn't switch time. Now, I understand why there's 365 days in a year, because after 365 days, we find just seasonally the sun's back where it was, or the tilt of the earth relative to the sun. And I understand why there's 30 days, or 28 days, or 29 and a half days in a month, because the tides. The moon going around the earth has an impact on the tides and a lot of other stuff, brightness of the sky at night. So I understand why there are 30, but why 12 hours or 24 hours in a day? Why 60 minutes in an hour? Why 60 seconds in a minute? And I don't have an answer to that.
Well, 24 hours in a day is roughly the time of, sunrise to sunrise.
Right, but why divide that by 24?
Right.
So if anybody has an answer to why 24, why 60, instead of why not just say there are 10 hours in a day, and they're a little more than twice as long as what we think of as an hour, and there's 100 minutes in an hour, and there's 100 seconds in a minute. I don't know. I mean, a lot of these things came out of royal decrees, a foot shall be as long as the emperor's foot.
Yeah, I think...
but why did we never get metric with time?
Well, because time was actually first the prime meridian, or the first standard, the first means of time was basically set in Greenwich, which is a suburb of London. And it still is.
Coincidentally, there is a link to GMT in the show notes.
Greenwich.
Greenwich Mean Time.
Mean Time. Yeah.
You got to count it starting somewhere.
Yes.
But why they divided it up the way they did, though, that's interesting.
Right.
And it's an interesting history. Link is in the show notes.
Oh, John has a comment. He says that time is a measurement of motion change. There are many other possible measurements of motion change.
Yes, time is one. That's correct. That is correct.
Thank you, John.
And so time is certainly a contextual absolute.
Jennifer says, if nothing ever moved or changed, how would you measure time?
Or how would the concept even come up?
Right, it wouldn't come up.
If nothing ever moved or changed, then there wouldn't be anybody to measure it.
It's like, when I was looking up what is time, and you go to these websites and these videos and everything, and then some goofball says, well, this, that, and the other thing about the Big Bang Theory, and everything was, the entire contents of the universe was in this little tiny compact dot, and there's no motion, and therefore no time. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the relevance of that is. I'm not quite convinced about the Big Bang Theory. I'm just at the stage of the axiomatic stage of existence exists still. I'm not going to speculate. But yes. Oh, Jennifer said she stood on the prime meridian. Oh, that's wonderful. I love it.
Then you were the standard of all things, all measures. At least in time, chronological, temporal measures.
Are we going to get into the whole time zone change issue? Because I do have some things to say about that, but I could wait.
You can certainly address that if you like, because I don't have any notes on that at all.
Oh my goodness. So back to right now we have a thing called International Atomic Time, which is kind of a child of the Greenwich Mean Time, and it's basically based on the it's a time scale that combines the output of 500 highly precise atomic clocks, and it's also based on astrological or solar time, which is, you know, the movement of the Earth's rotation and everything like that. Just to kind of back up the kind of like a little backup for the atomic time. But you know, this all started, gosh, as late as the I want to say the 1600s, but you know, it wasn't that long ago that this whole time thing actually was set up in England. And there was a point where, you know, not Thomas Jefferson, but Benjamin Franklin had the idea of moving our time 1 hour forward in the springtime so that we could save on candles and oil lamps, you know, and things like that, save on energy. And that has been, you know, that has been the idea here behind the whole daylight savings time.
Yes, and I've often wished that I could get poor Richard on the phone and say, don't you think we could simply change the time we opt to do things without resetting all the clocks?
Well, back then, you know, we didn't have energy saving, you know, really highly functional light bulbs and things like that.
But that would not require changing the clocks. Mm-hmm. If we reach a time of the year when it makes sense to go from feeding the pigs at 6 o'clock to feeding the pigs at 5 o'clock,
yeah.
Instead of changing our clocks and keep feeding the pigs at this new 6 o'clock, just feed the pigs at 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Instead of sending your kids to school at this new quote-unquote 6 o'clock, send your kids to school at 5 o'clock. Change your routine, not your clock. That's what I say.
That's a good idea there, mister.
And Benjamin Franklin unfortunately knew that not everybody would do that, and thought,
right. And
wouldn't it be wise to change the clocks instead?
Yeah, when he proposed it, he wasn't actually entirely serious about it.
Was he sober?
That's another question. So the idea didn't actually come about until like 100 years later. It wasn't actually enacted until about 100 years after he suggested it. But the idea was fairly good. And then it actually came about right before World War I in the United States. So they basically said, we want to conserve as much energy as possible, therefore we're going to change this to, we're going to add an extra hour of daylight in the summertime, and that's going to help out the war effort. As a matter of fact, we stopped daylight savings time after World War I, and then it was re-engaged by FDR, and it was called wartime, so that we can conserve energy and everything like that. Well, it's stuck after that. There was some studies done about whether or not it conserves energy, and they said not really, maybe 1%. And by the way, the whole farming issue that had something to do with farmers didn't have anything to do with farmers. By the way, we'll have a link in the show notes about that. It's really fascinating.
Urbane legend.
Yeah, and no, but at this point, do you know why we keep it in general?
Why do we keep it in general?
Because we all like, you know, we hate it when it changes, but we do like it when we have an extra hour of sunlight in the summertime.
Do you think so? Do you think there are enough people who say...
I would say yes. I mean, for me...
My answer to that argument has always been, when we eliminate the time change, standardize on what we now call DST.
Right.
Standardize on daylight savings time. Make this the standard. And in the winter time, when the clocks are all wrong and your kids are going to school too early, just change the schedule, not the clock.
You could.
You could.
You could say, well, the new start time for work is not 9 a.m., it's 8 a.m. or whatever.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or, you know, I thought about...
Or you could not change it and just get used to it. But either way, do what makes sense. Don't change the clocks.
Well, here's what I propose.
What do you propose?
I say we
This
move the mean time, the
GMT?
GMT to Ireland or to France, whichever it is, that will give us what we have now on the standard of daylight savings time.
Well, I think that would amount to what I just said.
All right.
Good. I'm all for it.
That would be really difficult, though.
Well, no, I think we have to stick with Greenwich being the standard, whatever you're going to call it. I don't think that you can change Greenwich being the standard of all of that.
Oh.
And it would be cruel to Jennifer, because then she'd have to say, I stood on what was once the prime meridian before they moved it to Paris. So.
Did you know that you have a slight Irish accent right now?
I do not. All right, let me fix that real quick. There.
Oh, Robert's no longer
All
Irish.
better. All fixed.
For those who he changed his hat, for those who are listening.
Yes, I've removed the green St. Patrick's hat and put on my usual chapeau. And you're right, I feel my voice coming back to that Midwestern American accent, which isn't an accent.
Say,
I have no accent. Everybody else does.
You're going to say Secretary of State and oop and get me some of that pop. So, Christina says, she has a thought here. I always thought it was interesting that when Marco Polo arrived back at the beginning of his journey, his logs were kept very carefully for his 24-year trip. When he returned to Venice, he discovered that his log was 1 day off. Everyone assumed he had made a mistake after all those years. Only hundreds of years later, someone figured out that he had traveled through all the time zones, and that is why his journal was 1 day off.
Interesting.
So that's interesting.
There's something I didn't know. All I know is you hold your breath, and when you come out of the swimming pool, somebody's yelling Marco Polo. Right. That's how much I know about Marco Polo. Obviously, I need to investigate, which means that won't be in our show notes.
He was a traveler. Not a time traveler, but he was an explorer. Yes.
I am a time traveler.
Yes.
That's one of my...
We are both in sync in our time travels now, all of us, including me.
It's one of my superpowers.
Yes.
I can travel in time. I travel forward only, and I travel only at a rate of 3,600 seconds per hour, but I can travel through time. So the question is time... Time.
Look what you done to me.
Is time an ally or an obstacle? I mean, clearly that depends on context. And for the vast majority of circumstances, it's really up to you. Do you set goals rationally? Goals that are achievable and measurable? If so, time is an ally. Time is on your side. Do you prioritize? Do you put your most important wants and needs ahead of low priorities or outright time wasters? If so, then time is on your side. Do you take breaks when necessary and resume when possible? If so, then time is on your side. Do you budget time for reflection, for thought, for contemplation, for gratitude?
Journaling. Journal in the morning.
Do you budget time on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. to listen to 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir? If so, then time is on your side.
Time is on your side.
That's right. If money, if money is the medium of value exchange, a store of your production, of your effort, of the values you created, given your thought and your effort, then yes, time is money, and money is time. And if money is not the root of all evil, but understood properly, the medium of exchanging that which is good, so too then time is your ally. Time is on your side. We've said before, everything is finite. Everything except the digits in pi. Actually,
the slices?
that's debatable. Yeah, the slices in pie. Well, those are definitely finite. We'll find out tonight how many slices are in this little, what is this, a 6-inch pie or 5-inch pie? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to pie for dinner. Everything is finite except the digits in pi, and that is debatable. But you have to join Harry Binswanger's list at hbletter.com. Because Harry Binswanger is debating or discussing on HBL, are transcendent numbers like that really, are they really numbers?
Yeah.
And to the extent we treat them like numbers, are they really infinite or infinite in digits? He's rewriting mathematics in a much more rational way.
I'm waiting for him to rewrite phonics.
But if everything which exists is finite, not concepts of method like transcendent mathematical numbers, but everything that actually exists is finite. If it is what it is, and that's all that it is, you can rue this. There are people who say because things are finite, that's a limitation. But if you rue that, even if you bristle at the idea that everything is finite, even if you think, well, your life is only so long, your time is limited, that can be good. You can use that. Get that chip on your shoulder.
I was going to say, how is infinity useful?
That's right.
I mean,
get the chip on your shoulder. Resent it if that's useful to you. If that's what it takes for you to take time seriously, get mad that there's too few hours in a day, that there's too few days in a year, and too many remaining days in your life. Let that drive you if that's your temperament.
Right.
And to some people it is. When I tell people take a positive approach to everything, there are certain people who are not empowered by that. If the fact that life is finite, that time is finite, that feeling that time's not on my side, time is against me.
Yeah, well, that sense of urgency can certainly motivate values.
If that's empowering, capitalize on it. Use it if that's your temperament. But me, I need a little of that. I need the reminder, Memento Mori.
Yes.
If you don't know Memento Mori, look it up or just click it in the show notes. But it is your reminder. Remember, you are going to die. I'm going to die. Someday I will be a memory.
I think we have another song lyric challenge.
Uh-oh.
Time is a thief when you're undecided. Like a fistful of sand, it will slip right through your hand.
Well, it rhymes, so it's probably a song. Might be a poem.
It could be a poem.
All
right. We're looking it up, Christina.
Or like sand in an hourglass. These are the days of our lives. So
it's Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart. Oh, from Young Turks.
Young Turks.
Well, then I should have known that one. That song, I've heard that song 1,000 times.
Oh, and we have some other comments.
Incidentally, in the song Young Turks by Rod Stewart, the expression Young Turks never appears in the lyrics. But there were already too many songs out there called Young Hearts, so he called it Young Turks.
Let's see here.
Or the songwriter called it Young Turks.
Yeah, John says, time is one of the fundamental resources. We each only have so much of it. Time is life.
Saving one is saving the other. Exactly.
Yes.
Time is finite.
And Jim says, back in the mid-70s, California tried something out. Some state government dummy, I guess, decided that the clocks be set forward 2 hours during the winter. That did not make going to school in the dark a lot of fun. Needless to say, they stopped doing that after a few weeks.
So one of these clowns thought that if 1 hour was good, 2 hours was better?
I have no idea why that idiot thought it was a good idea.
I can't begin to imagine. Actually, I can begin to imagine, but I'm not going to.
Well,
now,
maybe it fit their gym schedule better in the state capital and their private gym memberships and spa treatments.
And Jennifer says, time is a gypsy caravan that steals away in the night, which, of course, is Dreamtime from Rush, which is one of my favorite songs by them.
I love these song lyric challenges, guys. Keep them coming. I love it.
Yes. So, Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Everything is finite. So get organized. Plan. Be an architect, a scriptwriter, a designer, and design your days.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how I know the secret of how to slow down time.
What is the secret of slowing down time?
do something that is not already automatic to you, especially something really unpleasant.
Oh, well, we talked about that. You know, an hour in line at the DMV
Yes.
is a lot longer than an hour dancing with you.
You know, exercise is a really great way to slow down time. It really is. It's just, especially if you're on a treadmill, that's great. It's just,
Yes,
it slows down time. You can listen to
Yes,
something
it
in your
is.
earpod or whatever, and you can just, you know, look around you and say, I'm really annoyed, but time is slow.
Yes.
And,
Dale
yeah.
says pi r round. You know, it's funny because I've baked square pie before, so that pi r squared, but this one is round.
Oh, God.
He's absolutely right.
Oh, boy, darling, that was a real zinger.
So I always go back to you are the scriptwriter,
Yes.
and you are the star, and you are the director of your life, of this production. So once your script, your design is in place, your next step is to get dirty. You know, we talked before, we had a late friend of ours, and he and I had this discussion, this argument. I wouldn't call it an argument. It didn't look like an argument. But this was a great guy. A guy named Bob
Yes.
had
Bob.
the idea that he was going to be very healthy his entire life, and he was. He was a careful eater. He was in good shape.
Yep.
When we knew him, he was in his 50s. And he turned 60 years old, and he was flawless. He had no substantial injuries, no scars. He was in good condition. You know, he was in good shape. He hadn't, like, hurt himself or broken bones or worn himself out. And he had a heart attack one day, fell down, and was gone. Literally, he was found in his living room, like he just fell.
Like he was on the phone, all of a sudden, boom, he's gone.
And I admire, he kind of changed my mind about how healthy I want to be throughout my lifespan, because I always had the attitude of take more chances, get dirty, risk getting broken and damaged. And, you know, there's memes about, you know, sliding into home base barely alive.
Go 22 miles on your bike in one session without a helmet.
And Bob made me appreciate the fact that, well, I kind of want every moment to be at least somewhat functional. But as Yaron Brook would say, life involves risk, and you've got to decide what your risk factors, your risk tolerance are. You've got to accept a certain amount of risk, or you are going to miss out on all sorts of opportunities. So yes, get dirty. Risk getting broken. Live your life. And my homework for this week is
Was that?
top secret. I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
But it involves hourglasses.
Hourglasses.
I just ordered a set of hourglasses.
Oh, that's nice. I like
And
1 minute hourglass.
1
kind of
minute,
thing.
5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute, 30 minute. And I think there's a
Ooh.
2 minute. There's
You
6
know,
of them.
I was thinking about those recently, and I thought that would be so cool to have some hourglasses to play with.
You know, I've talked, and we've had whole episodes on habits and routines and breaking patterns and grit and determination. And I've achieved a lot this year, but I've got so much more I want to do that I'm going to be using hourglasses and trying some different strategies. But if you want to join me in doing my homework, and I'm not going to tell you what my homework is, but your own version of it, one thing I've done is I've tried using timers. So we've got these great timers with really big digits on them.
Does anybody remember time for timer?
Time for timer.
Hankering for a hunk of cheese.
That's
Yahoo!
right. Almost as good as Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah, almost as good.
But Schoolhouse Rock really
That's
was
the
the best.
best.
So you can use timers, you can use hourglasses, you can even use the timer function on your cell phone.
Whoa!
And one of the reasons I didn't order a set of hourglasses, even though I thought, if I want to apply 30 minutes to a task, and I had a 30-minute hourglass, I could set the hourglass and just do it until the sand runs out. But I thought, you know, I've got a cell phone. I've got timers on my cell phone, and I've got timers on the refrigerator, kitchen timers. I don't need to order hourglasses. I've got them. But I've realized that there's nothing like an hourglass. There's nothing like that physical,
Right.
observation-oriented, visible and visceral. You see sand and you have the sense of something physical happening out there in the world. Remember, I always want to externalize, get stuff out of my mind and out into the real world. I'm going to try hourglasses, and we're going to see how much impact that has. Feel free to join me on that. You can order these super fancy, beautiful glass hourglasses on Amazon and other websites. And they're designer. They're executives use these. You can buy a $100 30-minute timer. That's not what I ordered. I ordered a whole set, so I ordered relatively inexpensive ones. But you do you. Hourglasses this week. I'll tell you more next week how it all turned out and the parts that I'm not telling you about.
Can you make music with them, like glasses and with water in them?
I will find out, but I'm guessing no. But actually, the homework will involve music. That will be a part of this. So find a task that you're finding it difficult to trudge through. And then apply the 10-minute rule. Do you remember the 10-minute rule? The 10-minute rule is, if there's something you don't want to do or you're experiencing resistance to and you've tried all of your mental tricks, decide that you're going to do it for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes, give yourself permission in advance to stop doing it. Just say, I'm going to do 10 minutes of this.
Yes.
Whether it's laundry or organizing, cleaning, painting the house, whatever it is. And after 10 minutes, give yourself permission to stop. And maybe you will. Maybe you'll stop after 10 minutes and say, I made that agreement with myself. I'm not going to feel bad about stopping. I'm stopping now. I'm just not up for this right now. As often as not, after 10 minutes, you'll say, I'll do a little more, or I'll do a lot more. So try the 10-minute rule, see if that gets you through it. But if it doesn't, try the hourglass approach. And just say, I'm going to take this 30-minute or this 1-hour hourglass, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to trudge through. Because sometimes all the tips and tricks in the world for managing your psychology aren't going to work, and you got to trudge through it anyway. So I've got hourglasses coming, and I'll let you know what the result of that is.
We've got some more comments.
Yes.
All right. So, did we already say time is a gypsy caravan that steals the night away in the night? Okay, that's right. Jim says, time and mortality force you to be selective about your goals and your values. That gives limitations of time and deadlines their value. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that reminds me of something I wanted to say real quick is, you know, how the values you are currently experiencing affect your perception of the speed of time. So again, that goes back to the whole thing of like, if you can, so say for instance, you're in the shower, you usually start with the shampoo, and then you do the conditioner, and then you do the shaving, and then whatever else. You know, mix those things up. If they're automatic, and you want to kind of experience want to have a different experience in the shower or a different experience in your life, you know, don't take the same route when you're driving. We've
talked about that in regard to driving, and you're right. There is an order of doing things in the shower that makes sense.
Right.
It's the right way to do it.
And it's not something that you're like looking to be, you know, to irritate yourself or anything like that, or be having an unpleasant experience. You want a more pleasant experience by taking yourself out of your automatic routine.
There's a reason you do things in that order, and yet you can shake it up anytime you like. It's funny, we've driven places in the car before, and you've seen me take routes that are a little less efficient.
Yes.
But if this takes 2 minutes longer in order to go in a place where I haven't seen the same thing every day, if I can drive to work and it takes 5 minutes longer by not taking the freeway,
right?
If I can take a different route and see different things, wouldn't you exchange 5 minutes for not feeling like you're in a rut? Absolutely. Heck, there are things you might discover, thoughts you might have that you wouldn't have doing the same thing. I love that idea. That's great. I never thought about applying it to the shower, but you're right.
Yeah. I just want to give a big shout out to John, who says, a slice, a slab, a chunka.
Oh, so he remembered the original lyrics to that.
Love that. I gotta look that up. Good. I love that. Thank you, John. Linda says, let's see. Let's play look at past comments and see what they're referring to. This is the game. So, did you save? I'm not sure.
Well, that was 4 minutes ago. What were we saying 4 minutes ago?
I don't know. But I appreciate the comment. Thank you. I'm going to give you a heart. So,
so we mentioned Benjamin Franklin. I have to say that one of the impetuses for this episode, talking about time, was the Franklin quote. We mentioned it once before, where Franklin said, "Dost thou?" Why was he saying "dost thou"? He wasn't in England.
He was in the Bible.
It's often requoted as "do you?" "Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that is the stuff life is made of. I love that quote, even though he says, dost thou. I don't know, dost thou in a quote along with the word stuff? Stuff just isn't really very highfalutin.
He was trying to vary his syntax.
His level of stuffiness?
And to get out of his normal routine to enjoy his time more.
Oh, I see. Yes, he's trying to live his own wisdom. Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that is the stuff life is made of.
Well, back then, stuff was actually a really serious word. Somehow it just...
and obviously this is metaphysically loose. Life is not made of time.
Right.
Life is not composed of pieces of time particles. Unless you're in Star Trek, in which time is actually chronons or chronions or some word that sounds like it has something to do with time. Yes.
Jim here says, as an aside, I wonder about some people's fascination with the idea of time travel. I reject that idea, but I can see how it can be an attractive possibility to people for a number of reasons.
We did have an interesting time travel discussion online recently, and I made the point that no, you don't want to be able to travel back in time. We all know the idea of paradox and all the terrible things that happen in science fiction shows could people go back in time, but it's just the obvious one is if I went back in time more than 31 years, my daughter would never be born.
Right.
If I could go back in time with the knowledge I have now, with a consciousness of what proceeded, no matter how hard I tried to do all the exact same things that led to the results I have right now, I couldn't do it. It's physically, psychologically, mentally impossible.
Yeah.
I would end up changing reality. And that would be a horrifying thought if I did that at any time before my daughter was born. Or, in your own case, whatever particular values you've come across in your life, that it would be a nightmare for them to go out of existence. So no, you don't want time travel. And fortunately, if you understand what time actually is, the measure of change, or as Harry Binswanger would say, with a measure of motion, if you understand that time is a measure of things that happen and not a line, like a number line where you can go backwards and forward. The way they put it is it's a ray of light. It's a ray. Time goes in one direction because causality is a description of things happening. So things don't unhappen. Time can't go backwards. Time travel, if you're serious, doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
If you talk about it too much, the words stop having meaning and gobbledygook is coming out of your face hole because
and then you can
the
listen
words
to
are...
a good John Cage song.
Yes. So, I think I've said everything I want to say about time, at least for now, other than my Post-it note for the week, which says, it's not too late.
Aha!
But someday it will be.
Someday it will be.
My Post-it note for the week says it's not too late with 3 exclamation points. And then it says, but someday it will be with a period at the end. There was a meme going around that said, you're scared to start a 4-year course because you're 28, and by the time you finish it, you'll be 32 years old. But whether you take that course or not, in 4 years, you will still be 32. So why not be 32 doing something you love? Life has no timeline. Stop comparing yourself to others. Do you for you. Well, I don't know about the end of that, but it's true. If there is something where you think, well, that's a long way off, it's a relatively small reward for an enormous output, reconsider that, because in 4 years, you're going to be 32, or some of us might be 61. And the question is, do you want what you will get if you pursue a particular course of action or not? Because it's going to happen. One of the things is as you get older, and you start wondering, well, do I want a career change that'll take me, 25 years to get someone where, will I even be alive in 25 years? But, that it's going to happen. Whether you survive 25 years or not, that journey, that 5 years, that 10 years, that 20 years, that 40 years, those years are going to pass. And as my Post-it note says, it's not too late. But someday it will be.
Well, I've just got to say, I love Jennifer's, I think we were talking about the How can you slow down time? And she says, you drove backwards.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was originally going to wrap up by quoting Ferris Bueller, the philosopher Ferris Bueller. Now, anybody who's seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off remembers that
It's a ridiculous movie.
one of the plot elements is that Ferris Bueller convinces his friend to take out his father's fancy car.
Yes.
And the idea about not getting caught is, well, when we get back home, we'll jack the car up so the rear wheel isn't touching the ground, and we'll simply run the engine backward. Put it in reverse and go
right.
backwards the number of miles we put onto the car.
Yeah.
And what they discover is, of course, those who know cars know better, that doesn't work. Even back then, when it was a mechanical odometer using a cable to the speedometer, it doesn't work. And hilarity ensues. But the point is, not only does that not work, and it's funny that Jennifer brought up that idea, but at the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the philosopher Ferris Bueller reminds us.
What does he say?
He says, life moves pretty fast. So you better stop and look around once in a while, because you could miss it.
Good stuff.
And with that said, Post-it note of the week. It's not too late. Someday it will be. Reminders. Show notes will appear online within 10 minutes after the end of the show. 10 minutes. 10 minutes is an amount of time. And within that time, within that 10 minutes, the motions of the universe and myself and my computer will mean that within 10 minutes after the show, show notes and links to everything that we've talked about will appear online in the show. Questions and comments can be posted to the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook group. I feel like I need the green hat again. This is boring, no accent.
Oh, come on. Put the green hat on.
I know. Let me grab the green hat again. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And you can join us. You can join us. You can join the people who contribute to the show.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
You can
go to patreon.com/Robert Nasir, and you could give to us every month. If you don't want to give every month, you could give to us once just by going to paypal.me/Robert Nasir. You can make a one-time contribution to the show. You know you can.
Instead of throwing down your change down the well in the fairy garden, the garden of the fae.
Well, that sounds more fun, actually.
Then, you can do something even more magical and go on Patreon or PayPal.
And thank you for joining us. We wish you each success. We wish you each flourishing. We wish you each may the road rise to meet you. And as always, you know what we're going to wish you, don't you? You know you do. We wish you love.